Senator Marco Rubio, Republican of Florida, is calling on President Biden to cancel visas for foreign nationals supporting Hamas in the wake of the terrorist group's unprecedented attack on Israeli citizens near the Gaza Strip. America is the most generous nation on earth, but we cannot allow foreign nationals who support terrorist groups like Hamas and march in our streets calling for intifada to enter or stay in our country, Rubio said in a Saturday release. Since the attack on October 7th has killed more than 2,800 people on both sides of the war, so far, conflicting demonstrations have taken place across the U.S. Thousands of pro-Palestine demonstrators gathered in New York City's Times Square in support. This comes after it was reported Wednesday that former Hamas leader Khalid Mashhad called for Muslims to support the militant group that governs the Gaza Strip. New York City Mayor Eric Adams and other officials said they were deeply disturbed by calls for violence. The city and others across the U.S. have increased security. The protest, part of International Day of Action for Palestine, also included protesters from the City University of New York at Baruch College, who then joined in the demonstration in Times Square. Rubio said the Biden administration has the authority to cancel the visa, saying it was critical to do so for foreign nationals who endorse or espouse terrorist activity, including those who defend or support Hamas by calling for intifada, jihad, or other similar acts to eliminate the Jewish state of Israel. Rubio also announced that he would take action himself. In addition to demanding the Biden administration supply our existing laws, I will introduce legislation to force them to act, Rubio said. In addition, Rubio said he would pursue legislation that withholds federal funding from colleges and universities that allow pro-Palestine In addition, Rubio said he would pursue legislation that withholds federal funding from colleges and universities that allow pro-Palestine protests, demonstrations, and other activities that could seem to endorse or espouse terrorist activity or persuade others to endorse or espouse terrorist activity or support a terrorist organization. Hamas was designated as a foreign terrorist organization by the State Department's Bureau of Counterterrorism in 1997. Adams and New York Governor Kathy Hochul also denounced the demonstration to support Palestine, along with Representative Jamal Bowman. Progressive Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez blasted the bigotry of the Palestine rally in Times Square after facing pressure. Other members of the group of progressive lawmakers known as the Squad, including Rashid Tlaib and Cori Bush, were heavily criticized members of their own party, highlighting the divisions among Democrats over the war. Tlaib, the only Palestinian member of Congress, characterized Hamas' attack as part of a resistance effort and suggested the United States support stop funding Israel's apartheid government. At the same time, demonstrations supporting Israel have taken place in the U.S., and the Associated Press reported that a skirmish between the people on both sides broke out in front of the United Nations headquarters. Okay, this goes on for a little bit longer, and it's just more background information. There's not really much relating to Rubio himself here. So let me say that I didn't know the Senate was so effective in teaching lawmakers to practice guilt by association. I didn't know that was because I'm remembering what Tim Scott said. You need to be able to, Biden needs to be able to call out the members of his party that are not, all that stuff of you should be criticized not for something you're saying, but something that a person affiliated with you, either by being in the same party or the same state, is saying. So, where Rubio says we cannot allow foreign nationals who support terrorist groups like Hamas and march in our streets calling for etc. to enter or stay in our country. Well, my thing is, if we're a nation that is fine with meeting with dictators, like when Trump met with Kim Jong-un, I don't really see why we should suddenly turn into this country that basically has to reprimand people that support groups that we don't, to such an extent as to block them from being able to enter the U.S. Really, I think as long as they themselves are not linked to any terrorist activity, they should be able to come in. Now, the part that's really disturbing to me, and the one that I was most upset by when I was reading this, is where he says, actually, no, I take it back. The part it's here where it says Rubio said he would pursue legislation that withholds federal funding from colleges and universities that allow pro-Palestine protests, demonstrations, and other activities that could be seen. So that's my biggest issue with his comment here, because what do the Republicans and a lot of right-wing people say about social media? They're cracking down on free speech. But then here he is saying that he wants to withhold federal funding, not for people who are like actually engaging in terrorist acts or otherwise doing something bad themselves, but it says withhold it for college universities that allow pro-Palestine protests and demonstrations and activities that could be seen to endorse Hamas. So if I did a protest, let's say at Harvard, me at Harvard is a joke, but just for example, I did a protest at Harvard and I said, I do not condone the attack on the Gaza Strip, or rather the innocent Israelis that were killed, but I think we should also call attention to the fact the Israeli government has treated Palestinians very poorly, literally for decades, and that this is something that's part of a broader, more nuanced topic that should not see us just blindly back Israel. We can denounce the attack without completely siding with one side. But no, that's what Rubio wants. He is opposed to any type of protest or demonstration for Palestine, or that is like in favor of Palestine, receiving being held somewhere, that being held at a college university that should receive federal funding, that receives federal funding, and that's extremely dangerous, because like I said, you are effectively telling people, we're not depriving your funding because you're endorsing what Hamas did, you're condoning what they did. If you take any position other than an extremely pro-Israel one that completely negates anything that government has done to other people, we're going to strip away your funding. And remember, this is one of the guys from the anti taking away people's free speech party, supposedly. So if one of them gets banned off of Twitter or YouTube for spreading misinformation, that's censorship. But then trying to strip federal funding for colleges or universities that just so happen to have students or some other person there that protest in favor of a group that the U.S. isn't even affiliated with, as far as not even like in defense or against other Americans, you're going to strip away their federal funding. And this is why people say that lawmakers in the U.S. are so heavily, like, they'll call you anti-Semitic for saying this, but they're too pro-Israel, not pro-Jew, because there's a lot of Jewish people that can criticize their own the Israeli government as well. I shouldn't say their own government, because there are Jewish Americans, their government is the U.S., but whatever. My point I'm making is, this is why a lot of people feel like, and this is why Ilhan Omar, for example, talked about it's all about the Benjamins, because you have this groups like AIPAC, who get these politicians to take positions relating to Israel that are so heavily in favor of this foreign government as to treat the people that are in their own country like crap. So you better not hold a pro-Palestine demonstration or rally. Otherwise, Rubio's going to try to get your school stripped of its federal funding. Oh, and you also should not express any type of sympathy or understanding of the broader implications of this conflict, besides Israel is the darling innocent angel victim, because if you do, you're going to be barred from coming to the United States, even if you have no involvement with Hamas or any other violent group. If you say maybe we should consider that Palestinians have been treated very poorly for a very long time, and that might have been something that led to this attack, you're banned. So the pro free speech, pro freedom party Senator Marco Rubio trying as hard as he can to give you punishments for having a different opinion from him.